Oops, I'm doing it again. A few months ago I said Adam and Eve weren't real, and the internet lost its mind. The comments section lit up like a high school bonfire. But here's the thing. All that noise brought people into a deeper question. What if the Bible isn't just about ancient events, but about what happens inside of you? So today, I'm back at it, and this time it's Noah's turn. Spoiler alert, there likely was no Noah. He probably didn't build an ark, and wait for it, there most certainly was no worldwide flood. Whether or not there was a literal Noah, the Bible isn't giving us history so much as a spiritual story about your own mind, your survival, and how God preserves what is good. So let's talk about it. Hello, I'm Howard, pastor of the Roseville New Church, and welcome to Spiritual Shorts. Noah isn't about history, it's about how the human mind changed forever. You probably know the story. God tells Noah to build an ark, fill it with animals, and prepare for the flood. But according to the 18th century Swedish scientist and theologian Emanuel Swedenborg, Noah isn't a literal shipbuilder. He's symbolic of something far more important. This story represents a dramatic shift in the nature of the human soul. Swedenborg writes that in the earliest spiritual age, what he calls the most ancient church, people had an intuitive unity between what they loved, their will, and what they knew to be true, their understanding. But as humanity turned towards evil, that inner unity broke down. So the Lord did something remarkable. He separated the will and the understanding in the human mind, preserving our ability to know truth even when our desire for good had been corrupted. This corruption is depicted in the story by the Nephilim, who represented the dangerous power of self-centeredness overwhelming spiritual truth. The ark's compartments? Well, they weren't nautical. They were neurological, a spiritual structure built to keep truth afloat during a flood of confusion. Now, in high school science class, most of us learned that the brain has two sides, a left and a right, with critical skills centered on one side or the other. Left side, logic, language, analysis. Right side, emotion, creativity, big picture thinking. But here's something you might not have heard. That somewhere between 100,000 and 40,000 years ago, human beings began painting caves, burying their dead, crafting jewelry, and even playing flutes that they'd made from bone. We didn't just evolve biologically, we evolved intellectually, even spiritually. And around that same time, fossil records show increased asymmetry in human skulls, suggesting the two hemispheres of the brain were becoming more distinct in their roles. In other words, we weren't just surviving anymore, we were beginning to mean something. Swedenborg wasn't a neuroscientist, but he might have been 300 years ahead of his time. Before he ever wrote about theology, he was an engineer, an atomist, and a philosopher. And yet, his spiritual insights into the human mind were striking. He taught that when the human will became corrupted, the Lord preserved the understanding, separating the two, not to punish us, but to protect us. From a New Church perspective, the increasing division in our brains might reflect a deeper, divinely guided shift in consciousness, a split between love and truth, one that saved humanity at that time and still saves you and me today. As the Lord worked to preserve what could still be saved, maybe the mind and even the brain followed suit. Take a moment to reflect on the following passage from Swedenborg's book of Secrets of Heaven, where he writes essentially that the will and the understanding were separated so that truth could be preserved even when good had perished. You and I still experience this inner separation, thinking one thing and wanting another. Swedenborg shows that this isn't a flaw, it's a divinely provided way for you to heal, to grow, and to be restored. And the ark? Well, it wasn't really a boat at all. It was an ark, a box, a vessel for preserving what was still good in creation, a spiritual container, a blueprint for your own survival. It's what you build when the world outside or inside starts to flood, when you're overwhelmed. And every plank, every compartment, every quiet corner of reflection and prayer becomes a space where truth can stay afloat until love is restored. Now, this is just scratching the surface of a very complex story. But every element of that story, Noah's age, the length of the flood, the kinds of animals, their numbers, even the 2 different birds released at the end, they all carry deep spiritual meaning. And not just for this story, but for how we read the entire Bible. So here are 2 takeaways. 1, a literal understanding of the Bible often asks us to reject science. But faith and science were never meant to be enemies. Many of the deepest scientific minds saw faith and reason as partners in understanding reality. 2, saying that some parts of the Bible aren't literally true, but are spiritually true, that doesn't weaken Scripture. It elevates it. It elevates it to a higher plane of meaning where the Word speaks not just to the past, but to the heart today. So what do you think? Can faith and science work together to help us understand what it means to be truly human? Let me know in the comments. I read every one, even the angry ones. And if this helped you think differently, hit like and subscribe and share it with someone that might be floating through a storm of their own right now. Until next time, may your understanding guide you and your will be restored. God bless you.